Hey Curiosphere, welcome to our channel. So I'm Suraj and with me I have my co-host Pratham.
Hey everyone.
In this channel we're going to discuss deeply about all kinds of stuff from space, music, life and philosophy, hoping to stir up the curiosity in you. In today's topic we're going to discuss about do multiple languages make sense in this day and age? I'm going to start this off by telling you my views on this and why I even thought about this. So, if we take a look at the whole point of language, it feels like it's a tool that enables you to transfer ideas from your brain to another person's brain. And that's awesome. So now you acquire this tool in the hopes that it enables you to transfer that information. But if there's more than one language, it kind of defeats the entire purpose of a language. In spite of having a tool that should be sufficient to serve a particular purpose, we still are unable to serve that purpose. Now, Pratham, before you start off, I want to make it clear that I know why there are multiple languages. Like, historically, we as a human species were geographically isolated, and it was almost inevitable that we developed multiple languages. But in this day and age, when the world is smaller than ever, why haven't we formed a society or an organization where we make sure that there's only one language that's common? And I don't mean to say that we have to eradicate all the other languages. I'm just saying that uh, we will be keeping all the languages as is, but we will be making sure that we have one language that everyone knows. Yeah, so go ahead and tell me what are your thoughts on that.
Yeah, firstly, in a way, that is kind of true with English. I think it is kind of a global language, more or less, professionally and
Mhm.
otherwise. But yeah, but what do you think about like diversity in general? Like you said, there's a different geographies and different identities attached to that, to languages. Like, for example, when someone speaks German or French or something, they kind of identify with that because of wherever they've grown or because of their country. And it would be pretty hard to like kind of change it to a global common language, even otherwise.
Mm, okay, see, I have two thoughts on this. First one is, let's say, because we kind of recognize English as sort of an international languages, and that's like the language that bridges the language barrier, if you will. My first thought is having English as an international language and maybe, making it a compulsion that everyone should know that and let them keep learning their native languages as such. Or if some people find that why should English be the international language, why shouldn't something Spanish or Hindi or whatever, any other language be international language? Maybe we can come up with a invent a new whole new language and we can use that. But my point is that let one language be known to every single person so that the point of language is not disturbed. So as I said initially, like if you know a language and if I know a different languages, even though we have the tools that should enable us to communicate with each other, we still wouldn't be able to. So I was thinking, yeah, what is the point?
Yeah, makes sense. I think it would be definitely practical for sure to have like a single common language that everybody can speak
Hmm.
with. Maybe eliminate a lot of differences in the world for sure if we have a common communication medium. But it's kind of funny, like when you say that the whole point of language is communication,
Hmm.
it kind of reminds me of that movie Dead Poet Society. I don't know if you've seen it,
No, I haven't.
but yeah, so it's about this inspiring English teacher mostly, and like during the movie, one part he's just like, why was language made? And one of the students answers saying to communicate, and then he's like, no, to woo women. So
Okay. Yeah.
I just got reminded of that suddenly. But yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. But the real world challenges of actually implementing something like that, like people are so tied down to their native languages, or like for example, I know for a fact that some of my friends who've gone to countries in Europe and
Mhm.
stuff, it's not very like easy to survive if you know just English. So you kind of have to know the native language, especially like German or French or something.
Mhm.
it's pretty hard to kind of stay in those countries and not know the language.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think like at least practically it'll be really hard to kind of develop something like that, because naturally anywhere in the world, or even if you think about life developing anywhere else, I think the same pattern would kind of happen, right? Like based on the place that you stay, you would have a geographic identity and a language would develop there, and simultaneously other places would have their own languages. So I don't know, the idea of a global language, whether it really is there in our future.
Mm.
What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think we would have like a global language in the future at least. So I was just thinking, for now, what if, global leaders, just like they come together on climate change or all those matters that are globally concerning, what if they take this up as well and then start implementing one single global language in each of their countries?
But is the goal to make it easy? Like that's your only agenda?
Yeah.
Or?
So no matter where you go, you should be able to communicate with the other person. That's my entire goal.
Hmm. But actually, that kind of reminds me of something more. It's like for instance, learning another language is really kind of having another lens of perception in a way. Like for example, I remember reading this quote that said, a language is not worth knowing unless it teaches you to think differently. And this was when I was in college and trying to learn a little bit of French. So I mean, I think it's nice to be able to see through a different culture. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like if you only had one language as a like the majority or the global common language, it would kind of be a little monotonous maybe. Like for example, when you watch a foreign movie now, or let's say if you're planning to go to a different country to study or
Mm-hmm.
something, learning the language like really kind of adds something. It adds richness to life, like some variety and diversity. Don't you think it takes away from that if we kind of restrict ourselves just for ease of communication? We wouldn't put in that effort to kind of get to know another culture or a different language.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with your point that language is not just probably a medium of communication, but it's also teaches about their culture, depending on what words they use to
Mm-hmm.
describe what things. So I totally agree with that. Yeah, my point is just, let's say you're just traveling the world and you're just seeing stuff. So at least for the first few days or probably months that you're in a different country, your initial interaction shouldn't be cumbersome. So let's say you just go there for like 2 3 hours, I mean sorry, 2 3 days or something. You don't want to learn a whole new language just to be able to survive for those 2 3 days. Yeah, if
Mm.
you're willing to stay there and if you go for that cultural diversity that you get in that country, yeah, definitely. You would, without anyone having to tell you, you would start learning their language or whatever it is. But my main concern is that, like, when we meet on the road or whatever it is, like a general exchange shouldn't be cumbersome. You shouldn't be expected to know the other person's language.
Okay. I mean, it's kind of interesting you say that because, like, living in India, I think we already kind of come across that whole. Like, you don't need to go to another country to find people
Mm,
who speak a different language. We have like plenty of languages, right?
yeah.
And I mean, do you feel that over here also? Like, if you go to a different state, it becomes difficult to kind of be there without knowing the language, or
I don't think it happens that much in India because, as far as I know, I think India is the largest English-speaking country, if I'm not wrong.
yeah, but like, have you gone and lived in another
Ah,
state?
no. I haven't.
Okay. Just interesting because I was thinking about it because like I know like people who've come from the north and
Mm-hmm.
come to Bangalore, south, or even in the southern this thing. If you try to go to a different state, it's not that easy to kind of survive if you have a lot of interaction with the local folks.
Yeah.
It becomes difficult, and sometimes there is like a lot of bias also if you don't know their language.
Yeah.
So I kind of see where you're coming from, I guess.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah, so that was one, perspective of my argument. The other is, some people think that if you have that one single global language and say everyone starts talking about it, we might uh, concentrate less on our native language in the long run, and maybe we will lose some of the languages. And it's happening. we are losing some. If you think about all these indigenous folks who live in some islands, like who are cut away from the rest of the world, they have their own languages, and like there are many languages lost over time. So, do you think that could be one of the concern if we have a common language?
Yeah, definitely. Like that's what it kind of goes back into that argument of identity in a way, right? And diversity.
Mm,
Like by limiting it to that one language. I mean, we are doing that now, right? The younger generation in India as well. It's mostly like I know so many of my friends who don't know their own native language well enough,
yeah.
or at least like they're more comfortable speaking in English than their own native language or what their parents speak. So I think you lose out a lot, like especially I don't know, like it goes back into the whole losing culture and stories and other things. So many things that you probably, so many experiences, so many teachings
Yeah.
that you might lose out on by restricting yourself to one language. I think we are facing that post the British era. If the only benefit of having a single language is just ease of communication, I don't think then it does much. I think it takes away more than it gives. Because like the only benefit we discussed was easy communication in case you travel or meet people from another place, so that there's a common language.
Okay.
So what do you think about that?
I wouldn't go so far as to say, if the only benefit is that, then having different languages outweighs having a common one. Because I still feel, okay, maybe we are not that exposed to, going outside and being exposed to other languages, and how hard it is to survive probably if you don't know the local language. Um,
But I think most are easy to learn, no? I mean, maybe Chinese is probably something really difficult. I've heard it has like a lot of alphabets and stuff, but other languages you can kind of use the English alphabets to learn, like the European languages and stuff.
but again, this strikes parallel with, let's just consider programming languages, and many languages, Python at least, it's considered as one of the easiest languages to learn, and they sell it because you don't have to worry about learning the syntax of the actual Python language, and you can worry more about the actual logic, the coding part, and that's their selling
Mhm.
point. So, if you just translate that to the actual languages, also, you should be worried more about what you are there to do over there. Like, say, if you go to Spain.
But there's, but I kind of disagree. There's like a difference there, right? Because the coding languages, it's like it works behind the scenes and you don't really see it. You only see what is the consequence of it, like the effect. So you can achieve the same thing in different languages. But I don't know. I mean, but even in that case, right? Like there are different languages meant for different things.
Mhm.
Even if you talk from the tech perspective. So I don't know. I just feel like yeah, I don't know if the same thing applies to our linguistic diversity.
Yeah. I think we need to get one linguistic expert.
How about you? Like, out of curiosity, how many languages can you speak?
Three, if you count my slow Hindi.
Okay.
I can understand Hindi, but yeah, I don't think I can speak it very fluently. The other person will get bored. But yeah, I can speak Kannada, English, and Hindi. How about you?
Nice. Yeah, I think mostly just Hindi and English fluently, broken Kannada,
Hmm.
and very, very basic French.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. High school residue.
Oh. Also, do you agree on this point that it's easier for us to learn languages when we are kids than now?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of studies that show like kids are way more absorbing and they learn really
Hmm.
fast, right? Like I've heard stories of like 1-year-old, 2-year-old kids knowing more than one language
Hmm.
and being able to pick up really quickly. Because I don't know. Actually, that kind of brings me to like this thing about sounds in general, not just
Okay.
languages, and especially in the eastern side of the world where there's a lot of emphasis on the sounds of words. Like you'll notice that there's like for example, even the language we're speaking now is English, right? It's very limited in its phonetic range, is what I've observed and heard from a lot of people.
Yeah.
If you compare to one of our native languages or like one of the Eastern languages, like Indian, any of the Indian languages or Chinese or
Hmm.
whatever, like the other Asian languages. There's like so much diversity in terms of the range of sounds that you pronounce.
Yeah, yeah, I
And there's like
agree.
lot of these spiritual leaders who claim that it's good for you to, for your body and for yourself to be able to pronounce different kinds of sounds. Whereas English and like some of the Western languages, they're like very limited in their
Mm-hmm.
range of. So, what do you think about that? Any like thoughts on that?
Yeah, about the actual spirituality of it, I don't know. I can't comment on it because I'm not aware about that. But yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that you wouldn't pronounce sounds like la or something like that in English, and that's one thing. And the other point that I was going to go with is that I don't know if you know about this, but l- the language that you speak kind of affects how you think. So some languages they don't have words for, I don't know, some different type of anger, or let's say you don't have the word for anger in general. I think this was in a sci-fi book or something like that, but this is based off of a real theory. So that entire folk they didn't have a word for anger in their language, and they generally wouldn't get angry because they don't even know that such a thing is, such a feeling is capable. But if you go on like the prime, I think anger or happiness, crying, all those are primal instincts, and we can't really get rid of it. But maybe more of sophisticated feelings for which we do have words. Maybe if you didn't have that in a particular language, they probably would never have that.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Hmm.
Like, I think I've come across that theory, what you're mentioning, but it's more like, I mean, I think I've heard the counter argument that if there exists a word for it, then probably that culture has been exposed to that concept. Like, for example, I don't know, maybe this is like meditation. Like, for example, the fact that our languages have a word for it, or especially our Indian languages have different kinds of meditation and words for it, shows that that concept exists and like people have experienced it on this planet, in this culture, sometime along the history of it.
Okay.
But if we had not discovered that, there would be no word for something like that. Like, it would just be something bizarre if someone tried to explain it.
Yeah.
Do you get what I
Yeah. Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
wait. Mm, no, no, I'm not able to see how that is a counter argument because,
No, I mean, the like it's the same argument, but like the other way around.
yeah,
Instead of
yeah,
saying that there isn't a word because that concept doesn't exist, rather there is a word because that experience exists in the.
yeah,
So
yeah.
so I see what you mean. Like, definitely,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, like the variety of languages does add that richness, and maybe there would be words in some languages for something that other languages wouldn't have.
Yeah, yeah, true.
But I can't think of any examples.
I've actually seen a video where, some indigenous folks they don't have um, word for, I guess, time. So all they have is so the way they measure time is by direction. So for them, north like is a time or south is a time. Just depending on the sun, they again they don't use the word time. They just use the word direction, and that's how they know what time it is. So when researchers had given them a set of photographs of the same person being very young, then adolescent, middle age, then old age, like they would, depending on which direction they are oriented towards, depending on north, south, or west, east, west, they would arrange that when asked for them to arrange it however they feel like, they would arrange it differently depending on which direction they are turned towards.
Wait, arrange what?
Arrange the photographs. If you had given the same photographs to us, we would
Oh.
obviously arrange from, baby to adolescent to
Mm,
old age, from left to right.
mm.
But they would arrange it differently depending on in which direction they have turned.
Damn, that's pretty
Yeah.
interesting. It's kind of funny if you think about
Huh.
like different cultures developing different ways. Yeah, I get what you mean.
I mean, of course, it's not surprising that they have developed all those things in a different way because they were geographically isolated and they didn't have a means to think probably any other way because they didn't meet with people who would think in a different way. And for them,
But
Yeah, for them, we would be the ones who have like a weird word for all those things, and like time, past, present, future, all that.
Probably. Like, it kind of actually reminds me of those indigenous folks who stay in the Bay of Bengal in one
Mm-hmm.
island. I don't know if you're aware of that. Like, I think it was in the news like a couple of years back when some American tried to, like, you're not supposed to actually interact with
Yeah.
them and nobody goes on that island and
Yep.
stuff. And it's like they've survived like for thousands of years on that island just by themselves without interacting with the outside world. So like they have no idea about technology or anything at all. They just live their like their simple lives, I assume, and
Yeah.
they don't really know about much of what's happening. In a way, if you think about it now, like today in this whole COVID time, it's kind of like a boon. They don't really have to be bothered. So, anyways, like the government has set up rules. You can't really like go and interact with them or try to, land on their island or anything like that. And there were some people who tried it and they got killed and stuff.
Oh, yeah, I
So
did come across it. I think it was very recent, like within a year back or 2 years back that I saw on
yeah,
news.
so I mean, it would be interesting to actually kind of if finally we did end up establishing some communication with them, it would be really interesting. It's almost like two different civilizations trying to talk
Yeah.
for the first time without a common language between them.
True, true. Probably it's gonna be like the movie Arrival.
Oh, dude, that movie is like the bomb. I just love
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So yeah, again, like finally, it would lead me to that. I mean, at least this topic. So I really loved that they took this theory. So apparently, it's called as Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. I don't know.
Which part?
Yeah, this theory that the language that you speak affects how you think, affects your thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah. So these two people they developed that Sapir and Whorf. So yeah, I think Arrival took it up a notch and. It came up with an alien civilization who would think in a language that didn't have. I don't know if I'm saying this right. Is it that they didn't have words for present, future, and past? Like they conceptualized everything at once because of that circular thing, and that's why they
Yeah,
could,
kind of.
yeah, they could see all.
Yeah, that's what I
Mhm.
recall. But I think it's interesting, even in the first few scenes of the movie, when those two scientists meet each other, the main lead
Mhm.
characters, and she kind of says some stuff about language. I don't recall exactly, but she says how it's the primary thing that you would try to kind of establish in the first contact with a different
Yeah,
civilization.
yeah,
Some means of. So interesting, actually. Like if we were looking at it from a very global perspective, thinking about different countries and stuff, and now we're kind of like talking about
mm,
different
civilization. Yeah,
civilization.
altogether.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, if I don't know if any of our audience haven't checked that out, you should definitely check out Arrival. It's really amazing.
Definitely. I don't know, it was just like a very different movie after a long time. Something very, yeah,
And when I
at
got
least in my
yeah,
experience.
when I got to know that it's about all this aliens coming in, we generally think that okay, it's gonna be alien invasion. There's gonna be Arnold or some Sylvester Stallone fighting it back. But
Yeah, I think usually those typical images
uh,
of invasions and fighting comes, and this one's like very different.
exactly, yeah,
So yeah, not gonna ruin it more for anyone who's not yet watched it. But guys, check it out if you haven't.
yeah.
But like it kind of like what if some civilization did arrive? Would they find it strange that we have so many languages on Earth, like literally like thousands of languages?